All right, let's get right into it. So if you're a hip hop fan that's been sleeping under a rock, then you don't know that the Kendrick Lamar verse for the Clipse record, Chains and Whips, off of their upcoming album, Let God Sort 'Em Out, dropped yesterday. It leaked yesterday, at least part of the verse anyway, leaked yesterday. I would guess this is the majority of the verse. So we're gonna go through the lyrics as always with Kendrick. When he drops something, the people wanna know what's going on. They're looking for the hidden meanings. I don't really see a lot of hidden meanings in the verse, so to speak. The verse is kind of straightforward with the message that Kendrick has been putting forth through GNX and through the battle last year. It's pretty much the same thing. There is a line being drawn in the sand as far as hip hop and as far as bringing the art form back to being focused on the art form and not all the things surrounding it, not being corporatized, so to speak. So let's get into the verse, man. Without further ado, Kendrick Lamar starts it off pretty basic. This is kind of the flow that, because the beat also reminds me, that the tempo of the beat reminds me of Jay-Z and Kanye's No Church in the Wild from Watch the Throne. This is kind of that Jay-Z flow. I wouldn't be surprised if Jay-Z either had a verse on this or maybe still has one. We don't know. We'll see when the album comes out. But he starts with, I'm not the candidate to vibe with. I don't F with the kumbaya-ish. All that talent must be God sent. I sent you back to the cosmics. Now, starting it off, Kendrick is very much still keeping that same energy as far as how he feels about some of his contemporaries and their wishy-washy ways and fake approach, sorry for hitting the mic, and their fake approach to how they do business and how they approach the game, so to speak. So Pusha T expressed the same things about Travis Scott as far as him playing all sides of the fence. That's the kumbaya-ish Kendrick is referring to, because people do snaky things and then they act like everything's all good. He's not with that, of course. Now, of course, the second line, all that talent must be God sent. I sent you back to the cosmics, beginning and the end, right? Talent is something that you're born with, that you come into this world with, and then Kendrick is referring to taking the talent of said person or people, because there's maybe a couple or a few MCs that he has sent back to God where they got their talent in the cosmics. So all praises due, amen. Let's continue. So the things I've seen under my eyelids, kaleidoscope dreams, murders, and sirens. So that's just a dope line right there. Means when he closes his eyes, he sees his past and sees how he came up. That's what's in his head. That is what fuels his approach to hip hop in general and how he creates his art, right? The kaleidoscope, meaning the sirens and police sirens, right? And the colors of the flags that he grew up around, etc. Let's continue. So let's be clear, hip hop died again. Half of my profits may go to Rakim. How many Judases done let me down? But effort the West is mine, we right now. Therapy showed me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a what. So this is a clear reference to the Nas record, Hip Hop is Dead. But also, and that time, what Nas was saying at that time is that the way the business was being run, pushing non-creative music, non-hip hop music, non-MCs, so to speak. That was like at the end of the snap era of hip hop, the ringtone era of hip hop. Shout out to Soulja Boy. I think Kendrick is equating this past Drake era of hip hop to that, or at least that side of hip hop to that era. You know, so when Soulja Boy said that Drake stole his whole flow, I guess he was right. Let's continue. So then he says, half of my profits may go to Rakim. Now that just means that he owes a lot to really the father of all MCs, in my opinion, Rakim. Now, prophet could be seen as a double because both MCs can tend to be prophetic in their rhymes. If you go back through some of Kendrick's catalog, especially, he kind of predicted this happening between him and Drake, so to speak. But let's continue. Now, the two-time Gemini with the genocide. Now, this is when he starts this gen scheme. I'm going to get into that, but first let's just go with the two-time Gemini part. The lines before it when he says therapy showed me how to open up, but it also showed me I don't give a F. That is speaking to the duality of Gemini, right? And Kendrick is very introspective and positive, and he's also very aggressive and negative, or it can be seen as being negative. when it comes to battling and things like that. So that duality has been expressed through the last 2 albums. If you look at Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, is the opening up part of the therapy, the GNX album, the approach to the battle, of course, Meet the Grams, etc. The Super Bowl performance, all is the I don't give a F part of the therapy. And it also shows his acceptance of his duality as a Gemini. So now let's get into the Gen scheme. Let's start with Gen or gene as a word or a part of a word, so to speak, or a root of a word. So Gen, word forming element, technically meaning something produced, but mainly in modern use, things that produces or causes. So basically creation, right? So some of the examples that they give is the Greek born of or produced by. That's really where the root of the word comes from. But the crux of what he's gonna be talking about is the creativity part of hip hop versus those who lack the creativity part, those who don't produce, who don't create things, right? So that goes into the root word of Gen and maybe why he used words related to that root meaning to not only put some entendres together, but also throw some subtle shots as well. So let's go line by line here and break it down. So I'm generous, however you want it. I'll be the gentle kind, gentleman and gangsters connect. The agenda of mine, that's pretty straightforward. Again, he's talking about he can take it to any level he needs to get you up out of here, but also the gentleman and gangsters connect. The agenda of mine, again, talking about his approach to just bringing the culture together as a whole. You know what I'm saying? The foundation of the culture, the realness of the culture, so to speak. So then he continues, move ninjas up out of here. This ish get gentrified, heavy jeans like Genevieve. I drop your Pentagon. So of course that connects to him getting the fake and lame people out of the culture, right? That's gentrifying the culture, so to speak, in the reverse, I would say. And of course, dropping the Pentagon is getting your defenses and your team and your protection up out of here. Now, the next few lines, and show up at your gender reveal and tell them, give me mine. I son niggas, I'm the general. Where's my gin and juice? Every song in the book of Genesis. Now let the sonics boom. Now this is very layered and it connects in a really slick way. Now, of course, the son he's referring to goes back to the gender reveal line. So, you know, gender reveal is about children. So he's saying he's gonna show up to the gender reveal and snatch his sons up because they need some lessons, so to speak, right? But then when he says, I am the general, where's my gin and juice? Now, first of all, the general line calls back to the Pentagon line. But then when he says, where's my gin and juice? That could also be seen as taking a shot at Snoop, as Snoop has appeared in the General Insurance commercials, right? And of course, gin and juice is Snoop Dogg's first big hit. Now that also calls back to the line earlier in the verse of how many Judases done let me down, but F it, the West is mine, we right now. Could be a coincidence, but I don't know, only time will tell, right? So then we get into the Genesis. Every song in the book of Genesis, let the sonics boom. Now again, remember the gen, the root word origin is about creation and birth, right? Well, Genesis describes the birth of sound and light because God began to create the world in Genesis through his word, right? So that's the first sound was God's word and things started to be created through his word. And of course, hip hop is an expression of words, so to speak. And that's how we create our culture through the words or influence our culture through our spoken word. So at times we have to let the sonics boom, you know what I'm saying, through a battle, so to speak, like he did in 2024. And you see the change that happens when we do that. And it's done without being hindered, so to speak. Shout out to censorship and Drake and his paperwork poppy lawsuit and UMG against the Clipse and etc. Let's continue. So ninjas want the tea on me. Well, here's the ginger root. I generate residuals, bitch. Get off my genitals. They said I couldn't reach Gen Z, you effing dickheads. You must be full of that ginseng. Here comes the jinx, yeah. So, okay, first, of course, you got the tea scheme by using ginger and ginseng, right? Those are both teas that come from root plants. Again, the gin, about birth, about source, roots, etc. You get the picture. So of course, tea meaning rumors as well as actual ginseng and ginger tea. And of course, genitals, which is where people are created and genes are passed on, which is why using these words that share a root meaning, so to speak, in a way is kind of genius because there's triples all over the place in this verse so far, as well as Genesis, genitals, and roots all being related to creation. Original creation, might I add, which is very important. Now, if we want to go for a doll scene type reach, ginger is also another word for the color red, red neighborhood, ginger root. If you know, you know. And of course, ginseng is also taken for erectile dysfunction, so to speak, right? And for penile health, genital health, so to speak, right? This is all very pause-worthy, so we're gonna get off of that. But then when he relates the Gen Z to the Jinx line, now Jinx is a very popular character amongst Gen Z from the League of Legends video game, I believe it is, and the Arcane television show, which is based on that video game. The Jinx character is a young lady who is very destructive and very not give a F, so to speak, as far as I understand it. Shout out to Gen Z, y'all can clear that up for me if I'm wrong about that. But anyway, let's continue. Ain't genetics been synthetic, screaming they genius, a finger wave, they all fall, ninjas is Jenga. And then the next line, it cuts off, God gave me light, and we don't know what he says after that, a good year full of whatever. But when he says, ain't genetics been synthetic, that could be seen as a callback to Not Like Us in general, right? Drake comes from a musical background, a musical family, right? But Kendrick is saying, it ain't the genetics, it's not your daddy, right? It's the synthetic help that you get from ghostwriters and stealing songs and all of the things. And like I said, Drake is not the only one. That's why he said screaming they genius, right? There's others that will probably be outed in the future. We'll see how things go. I've said it, but people attack me when I start mentioning names of people who gotten help, but it's okay. I'm gonna leave it alone. But anyway, the overall thing that I took from it is he's getting into the importance of creation and the importance of originality, especially in hip hop, because that's really the source of the creation. You're not singing, you're not so much using the talent, you have your brain and your ability to convey a message through words that is a meaning, that means so many different things to so many different people. Let me put it that way. And that is in the genes. And there are certain type of people with certain types of genes that excel in that department. Shout out to the Geminis out there, because there's a lot of dope MCs that are Geminis, so to speak. Can't wait to hear the rest of the verse. Can't wait to hear this whole album. I think this is gonna be a classic album for sure, just from what I've heard from it. The Clipse are finishing what started last year, I believe, or continuing what started last year in writing the direction of the creativity and the just overall structure of hip hop and where it should be. It should be with the people who honor and create and love it, and most importantly, respect it and respect the people that it comes from and that it originates from. Shout out to the Gene Scheme in this verse. So that's all I got, man. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If I missed anything, if you picked up anything else in the verse, if you didn't understand anything, just let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you haven't hit that like button yet. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Share this video. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank y'all for watching as always, and we out.